Before we wrote everything down, whether hieroglyph or the Notes app on our phones, we had the oral tradition. Stories, songs, poems, or speeches, sharing aloud has always been a way for us to connect. So here are 10 tips I like to keep in mind when performing.
Welcome to the Poetry Lab podcast. The Poetry Lab started 11 years ago to help dedicated, self-taught, and formally trained writers find a place in their community to write, read, learn, and collaborate. We help writers tap into their craft with radical self-compassion, unlike anything you've ever seen in a creative writing classroom before. If you're a creative person trying to establish a writing practice in the real world, this podcast is designed to help you carve out the time, the courage, and the inspiration to keep writing your new shit. Are you ready, poet? Let's get into it.
Believe it or not, dear listener, I am an introvert. I know. You may have only known me for a few episodes now, but even you can tell that your girl BB is quite loquacious, to put it nicely. I've been labeled quite the talker since my earliest elementary school report cards. Trust me. But that doesn't make the idea of speaking in front of people on a stage or huddled over a mic in my bedroom any easier. I still become pretty drained after exerting so much effort in a social setting. And I have an anxiety disorder, so things can get kind of scary in here really fast at the prospect of performing. The good thing, dear listener, is that I have had a lot of time to practice and I have a few tips to share. If you're nervous, it's okay. What you plan to do for whatever length of time is nerve-wracking. This is a natural response. I often encourage poets, especially first-timers, to let the audience know that they are nervous. Yep, just rip the Band-Aid off. If the audience is worth their salt, they'll clap and offer encouragement. And if they don't, well, use your righteous anger at their audacity to push through. Number 2, breathe. You kind of have to do that anyway, but this time be very intentional. Easy breaths in and out as you settle yourself before approaching the stage, of course. But I also mean when you're practicing too. Yes, practicing. Breath control isn't just for Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar. You need it too. As you read your piece aloud to yourself, make note of where you need to stop and take a breath. 3. Speaking of notes, like breathing, I suggest you script your poem out. Grab your poem and add stage directions for yourself. If you're worried about stumbling over a line, space it out on the page so you can be intentional about how you pace it. Is there a word or line you want to emphasize? Make it bold. Place a few exclamation points around it. Also, keep in mind that no one requires you to recite the poem exactly as written on the page. Create a stage version of the poem in your script. Maybe you want to repeat a word or phrase that doesn't need to be repeated when it just lives on the page. If you've shared the poem before, take note of places in which the audience reacted and maybe give a little space for that reaction the next time. Make sure you look up at the audience and not just down at your poem the entire time, so put a cue to look up. When performing your poem in front of people who can see you, your body language and nonverbal cues are sometimes just as important as the words you speak. This is a performance after all. Number 4, feel the poem. Smile, frown, laugh, cry, whatever comes up while you read it, give it to them. But whatever you do, don't force it. Unless this is a monologue and you're flexing your acting chops. Crying on cue during every poem just to get a reaction can cheapen it, even if the tears are sincere. But during a monologue, it's part of the expectation. So play it cool. Number 5, be clear but not boring. Dear listener, whatever you do, don't read it flat. Be clear in your delivery, but don't skimp on the personality. Unless the audience has a copy of the poem in front of them, they're relying on you and your delivery. but a monotone recitation may not be the best fit for all listeners. It's like reading a book to a kid at bedtime. They still need at least a little magic to keep them listening. 6. Do your own thing. I'll admit that this can vary a lot depending on what you're used to aesthetically, locally, generationally, or even culturally. The poets you came up with, the poets who taught you, and the poets you are surrounded by could present to you a particular aesthetic. And that aesthetic can feel like law. But, dear listener, it isn't. Take time practicing the poems out loud to figure out how you sound and how you want to sound. Many people begin by mimicking, either purposely or unconsciously, speech patterns they've heard before. Maybe you watch a lot of poetry videos online and fall in love with a particular cadence. Maybe you like to get into the pocket like a battle rapper. Maybe it's the way your grandpa tells a story, and even how the preacher sounds on Sunday morning. Play, remix, take bits and pieces, sample the sounds until you find the one that fits you. If taking on the affectation of someone else is what serves the poem and the performance, then you do that with all of your heart. But don't forget that you don't have to if you don't want to. You can be yourself as well. You will also hopefully find that each poem has its own voice. No two poems sound exactly the same. And that brings me to number 7. I remember once a poet homie of mine asked me who I studied performance wise. Who did I watch or listen to help me develop my poetry style vocally? And I said, nobody. This is just how I talk. I read poems the same way I give lectures, the same way I joke with my friends, the same way I sold jeans in a retail store, the same way I explain rap beef to my baby boomer father, the same way I review romance novels on Instagram. This is just what I sound like. But it wasn't always like that, dear listener. At first, I struggled. After my MFA program, I did perform poetry again for about 5 years. I remember standing at a podium, my face dangerously close to the page, and I read my poems with such a dull and droll effect, I'm surprised I didn't put my own self to sleep. I was out of practice in trying to imitate other poets who didn't vocalize as flamboyantly as I tend to do in my normal conversation. I didn't perform again after that for about another year. And that time I threw caution to the wind and I just read the poem the way that it felt comfortable to me. And it worked. So please, just be yourself. Number 8, take your time and only your time. This starts before you even get on the stage. Rehearse your pieces and add timestamps to your notes. And be honest with yourself. If you know you tend to prattle a bit before or between poems, that needs to be included in your rehearsal time. Plan to plug your book or your next gig, add that in too. Leave a little wiggle room for unexpected interruptions, misplaced pages, mic adjustments, Broadway level standing ovations, or animated stampedes. Anything can happen. Knowing how much time you have will save you from rushing through a piece as well. Take your time. Open mics often have limits like 5 minutes or 2 pieces. Featured spots may be as short as 10 minutes or as long as 30 minutes. Even if a time limit isn't specified or enforced by the host or MC, it's good form to be mindful of your time. You are more than likely one of a few people on the lineup, and they need their time too. I wouldn't keep a stopwatch running on your compatriots, but I would definitely pay attention to the average set time. Now, ultimately, it's up to the host or the MC to enforce time limits, okay? So that's not your job. Your concern is being considerate of the other folks coming after you. For example, this tip is probably longer than all the other ones I've given you, right? And you can feel that, can't you? Even without checking the time, you know you've been listening for a little bit longer. It's subtle, but it's there. And if you are worried truly about blowing over your time, you can even ask for a signal when you have 2 minutes left or so, or keep a timer running on your phone, or both. Number 9, know your audience. Sometimes we say this and it translates to sharing pieces you believe the audience would enjoy or appreciate. And that is important to keep in mind, especially if the event has a theme. But sometimes there is no theme, and you show up and everyone's reading super silky, slinky, sexy poems, and you plan to wax poetic about your childhood pet and that existential crisis you went through after your last two exes. Oh no, panic at the disco. What do? Pivot to some slow jam poems? If you have them, maybe. But maybe, and this is my controversial advice, you do the poems that your furry friend, your exes, star in. Because maybe, just maybe, there's someone in the audience who needs that. You may need that. And you are your first audience after all. So do what you came to do. And if you are really concerned about this kind of mismatch happening when it comes to the vibes, you can always check with the host before you start prepping for your gig. Now, number 10. Pay attention to your needs. It is so important to eat, hydrate, and rest, of course. And it's also pretty important to know that you need time to get hype before going up on the stage, or you need time that's kind of quiet and to yourself. Maybe you're like me and immediately following a poem, you feel a little overstimulated and need a second before you feel fit for public consumption again. Whatever it is, take care of yourself. Make a plan, even if it's an escape route. Well, folks, that's my time. If you enjoyed what you heard today, check out past episodes like episode 4, where Marilyn helps you build your confidence as a poet, or episode 26, where Lori walks you through what you need for your author website. Be sure to like and follow us for more. We have some great episodes coming up that you don't want to miss. If you really want a gold star in our hearts, share this with a friend to help us grow our community here. For more information about the Poetry Lab podcast, check us out at www.thepoetrylab.com/podcast. And you can find me, your girl BB, on Instagram at bridgette bianca. And you can add me to your bookshelves by grabbing the second edition of my book, Be Trouble, published by Writ Large Projects. Talk to you later.